Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
The manager told me it was a quiet store. That was the first lie. I worked the late shift at a Pizza Hut just off the highway, the kind of place families stopped at on road trips because the sign promised safety and grease and light. From the outside, it looked like every other one. Red roof, fogged windows, the smell of yeast and oil seeping into the parking lot. Inside, though, the air always felt a little colder than it should have, like the building was breathing differently from the rest of the town. On my first night, while I was learning how to stretch dough, I noticed a narrow metal door behind the walk-in freezer. It was painted the same off-white as the walls, but the paint was chipped near the handle, clawed away in long, thin lines. I asked the shift lead what it was. "Storage," he said too fast. "Don't worry about it." Around midnight, after the dining room closed and the drivers drifted in and out, the store changed. The ovens hummed lower. The soda machine clicked to itself. Sometimes I heard a faint thump from behind the freezer, like someone shifting their weight on concrete. When I mentioned it, the others laughed and said it was the building settling. The third week, a delivery driver named Matt didn't come back. His car was found the next morning behind the store, driver's door open, keys still in the ignition. The police asked questions, took notes, shrugged. People disappear all the time, they said. The manager brought donuts to the morning shift and told us to keep working. After that, the thumping got louder. It wasn't random anymore. It came in patterns, 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 2 quick ones, always after midnight, always when the store was almost empty. The night I finally touched the metal door, it was ice cold, colder than the freezer handle, and it vibrated faintly under my palm, as if something on the other side was breathing hard. I should have quit. I didn't, because I needed the money, and because something about that door felt like a dare. One Friday, the manager told me to help with inventory. He handed me a clipboard and nodded toward the back. "Count everything, even storage." He stood watching as I walked toward the freezer. I remember thinking his smile didn't reach his eyes. The metal door wasn't locked. Inside was a narrow stairwell descending into darkness. The smell hit first, not rot, not exactly, but a wet, coppery odor layered under old pizza sauce and bleach. My phone flashlight shook as I went down. The steps were worn into shallow grooves, like they'd been used a lot more than storage would require. At the bottom was a low-ceilinged room with concrete walls. Shelving lined one side, stacked not with boxes, but with old uniforms, aprons stiff with stains, name tags still clipped on. I recognized one, Matt. Against the far wall were handcuffs bolted into the concrete. There were scratch marks everywhere, frantic spirals carved by fingernails. On the floor lay a stack of delivery receipts, months' worth, each one circled in red pen. Times, addresses, names. Behind me, the stairwell light vanished. I heard the door close, slow and careful. The manager's voice drifted down, calm as he'd been on my interview day. He said the store had been struggling. He said some people don't mind going missing if no one is really looking for them. He said the late shift attracts the lonely. Something moved in the darkness beside me. I hadn't seen them at first, huddled in the corner, but they lifted their head when they heard his voice. The face was swollen, eyes too bright, lips cracked, and whispering something I couldn't understand. When they shifted, the handcuffs clinked softly. I screamed until my throat burned. The sound died in the concrete. I don't know how long I was down there. Time lost its shape. At some point, the thumping started again, right beside me now. 3 slow, 2 fast, echoing through the walls. A signal, a plea. The thing that saved me was the oven alarm. Upstairs, a timer went off, shrill and insistent. The manager cursed. The door opened a crack. Light spilled down the stairs. I ran. I don't remember hitting him, only that I was suddenly past him, slipping on sauce and bleach, tearing through the kitchen, out the back door into the cold air. I didn't stop running until dawn. The police came. They found the room. They found the uniforms. They never found the manager. The store closed for renovations and then quietly disappeared, the sign taken down, the parking lot cracked and empty. Sometimes, when I drive past where it used to be, I swear I can hear it through the open window of my car. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 2 quick ones. Still coming from somewhere under the ground, still waiting for someone on the late shift to listen.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 2.
I worked the late shift at a Pizza Hut just off the highway, the kind of place that never fully sleeps because truckers and college kids drift in at all hours. This was back when we still made dough in-house, when the ovens roared all night and the air always smelled faintly burned, even after closing. I'm telling you this exactly as it happened, because I still don't have a rational explanation for what we found in that store. It started small. Missing food. Boxes that didn't line up with the inventory, pepperoni bags lighter than they should have been. Our manager blamed the night crew, then blamed the POS system. We joked about a pizza ghost stealing slices after close. None of us thought twice about it. Then the phone calls started. After midnight, when the dining room was locked and only delivery orders were supposed to come through, the phone would ring once, not twice. Never long enough for the caller ID to pop up. Just one sharp ring that echoed through the empty store. If you picked it up fast enough, there was nothing on the line. No breathing, no dial tone, just a flat silence like the call was never real. We unplugged the phone. It rang anyway. That was the first night I felt that crawling sensation, the one that makes you aware of the space behind you even when no one's there. I remember staring at the dark dining room through the service window, the booths lined up like empty pews, and thinking the shadows looked deeper than they should. A week later, someone found footprints in the flour. They came from the freezer, not boot prints, bare feet, small, narrow, with toes pressed hard into the powder like whoever made them was walking on tiptoe. The trail crossed the prep area and stopped in front of the sink where the flour was smeared away as if something had been washed off. The freezer door was still locked from the outside. No one had the key except management. The manager laughed it off, said one of us was messing around, but nobody was smiling, especially when we checked the security footage. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the camera facing the prep line glitched, not the usual stutter. The whole image bent inward like the lens was being pushed from the other side. For 3 seconds, the screen showed something standing between the make table and the sink. It was low to the ground, pale, and wrong in a way that made your eyes slide off it. Then the feed snapped back to normal. The timestamp kept running the entire time. We tried to pull footage from other nights. Same glitch, same time. Always 1:17, always 3 seconds. Always something there that wasn't any of us. People started quitting. No notice, just no-shows. One delivery driver left his car running in the parking lot and never came back for it. When we finally reached him days later, he said he'd seen someone sitting in the back seat while he was driving, reflected in the rearview mirror. A kid, he thought at first. Then he realized the thing didn't have eyes, just smooth skin where the sockets should have been, stretched tight like dough pulled too far. Management told us to stop spreading rumors. That was the night the ovens shut off by themselves. All three, mid-rush. The kitchen dropped into a sudden heavy quiet, the kind that makes your ears ring. The heat vanished so fast it felt like the building exhaled. Then we heard it. A scraping sound from the dining room, slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragged across vinyl seats. I volunteered to check. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself I wasn't scared. The lights flickered as I stepped out from behind the counter. The scraping stopped. The dining room was empty, but every booth was pulled out, crooked, like someone had just slid out of them in a hurry. On the far wall, behind the salad bar we never used anymore, something had been written in grease. It's hot when you're alone. The letters were uneven, pressed hard enough to streak, still fresh. I backed away and nearly ran into the freezer door. It was open. Inside, the temperature felt wrong. Not cold, damp. The shelves were bare except for one box shoved against the back wall, a large Pizza Hut box, old logo, grease-soaked and sagging. I knew it hadn't been there before. We would have noticed. I opened it. There was a face inside, not severed, not dead, just pressed flat like it had grown into the cardboard, skin pale and glossy, eyes sealed shut, mouth stretched into a grin too wide to belong to any human. When it spoke, the sound came from everywhere at once, bouncing off the freezer walls. "Closing time," it said. "You always forget to lock me in." I slammed the door and ran. By the time the police arrived, the freezer was empty. The ovens were cold. The grease on the wall was gone. They told us it was vandalism, stress, maybe a prank that went too far. The store shut down 3 months later. Officially, it was structural issues. Unofficially, nobody would work there after midnight. Last year, I drove past the building. The sign was gone, windows boarded up, but the parking lot lights were on. One light inside flickered, red and warm like an oven left running. And my phone rang once.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 3.
People still argue about whether this really happened, but everyone who worked at that Pizza Hut the summer of 2012 remembers the same details. And that's what keeps it from ever feeling like a story. The store sat just off the highway, the kind of Pizza Hut with a dying red roof sign and carpet that smelled permanently of grease and sanitizer. It closed at midnight on weekdays, 1 a.m. on weekends. I was a shift manager then, broke, tired, and used to weird customers. Nothing about that night felt unusual at first. It was a Tuesday, slow, rain tapping the windows hard enough to blur the parking lot lights. Around 11:10 p.m., the phone rang. The caller ID just said, "Private." I answered with the usual script. The voice on the other end was calm, almost bored, and male. He ordered 1 large pepperoni, extra cheese, well done. Nothing strange. When I asked for the address, he hesitated, then gave me a location less than 10 minutes away, a residential street I recognized. Then he added something that made me pause. "Call when you're outside," he said. "Don't knock. Don't ring the bell." I asked why. He laughed softly and said, "You'll wake her up." I should have canceled the order. I didn't. People say weird things all the time. The pizza went out with our driver, Kevin, at 11:28. Kevin was 19, quiet, the kind of guy who kept his head down and just wanted tips. He texted the store from his phone when he arrived. "Outside, no lights on." Then another message came in almost immediately. "Doors open." We waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Drivers get lost or chat or smoke. At 20 minutes, I called Kevin. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. At 11:54, the store phone rang. Same private number. I answered. The same calm voice said, "The pizza's cold." I told him our driver hadn't returned yet. There was a pause. Then the man said, very clearly, "He won't be." Before I could respond, the line went dead. We called Kevin's phone again. Still nothing. At midnight, I locked the lobby doors and called the police. They asked for the address of the delivery. When I gave it, there was a silence on the other end of the line that felt wrong. That house had been vacant for months. Police found Kevin's car parked crooked at the curb, driver's door open, engine still warm. The pizza box was on the roof, rain soaking through the cardboard. The front door of the house was wide open. Inside, the place was stripped bare. No furniture, no pictures, no dust. The walls were freshly painted, too white like a hospital. They found Kevin in the basement. He was alive when they pulled him out, but he never spoke again. He never even looked at anyone. Doctors said it was catatonia brought on by trauma. When police asked what happened down there, he just shook and stared at the corner of the room. In that corner, officers found a folding chair, a camera on a tripod, and a microphone taped to the floor. The camera had been recording when they arrived. The tape showed Kevin coming down the basement steps, calling out, holding the pizza box. A man stepped into frame from behind him. The man's face was blurred, either by the camera quality or something else, but his voice was clear. "You were told not to knock," he said. Then the footage went dark. The tape ended 3 hours later. The case went nowhere. No suspect, no fingerprints. The phone number was untraceable. Kevin quit Pizza Hut without ever formally resigning. He moved back in with his parents and refused to talk about that job at all. If someone even mentioned pizza, he would leave the room. We thought that was the end of it. 3 weeks later, on another rainy night, the phone rang again. Private number. I answered, my stomach already tight. The same voice came through the line. "1 large pepperoni," he said. "Extra cheese, well done." I slammed the phone down and told everyone we were closing early. As we were shutting off the lights, the printer behind the counter suddenly screamed to life. An online order printed itself out. Same pizza, same address. At the bottom of the receipt where special instructions go, there was one extra line that none of us ever forgot. "Call when you're outside. Don't knock. Don't ring the bell. She's sleeping again." That Pizza Hut closed permanently a month later. Corporate said it was due to declining sales. But if you talk to the night shift employees who were there, they'll tell you something else. Even now, years later, they still get the occasional call from a private number late at night. No one speaks on the line. You just hear breathing. And then, very softly, a man asking if the pizza is on its way.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 4.
I worked the closing shift at a Pizza Hut just off the highway, the kind of place that smelled like grease even when the ovens were cold. Red booths cracked with age, dusty plastic lamps, and a delivery door that never quite shut right. I was 19, broke, and desperate enough to ignore the way the building seemed to exhale once the last customer left. Most nights were routine. Lock the front doors, count the till, scrub the pans, take out the trash. The only thing that ever bothered me was the phone. After 10 p.m., it would sometimes ring once and stop. No caller ID. When you picked up, there was nothing. No breathing, no static, just a dead, padded silence like the line was swallowing sound. My manager said it was a glitch. The assistant manager said it was drunks. After the third week, we stopped answering if it rang after close. That night, I was closing with one other guy, Aaron. He was in the back washing dishes, radio playing low. The storm outside had knocked the power out in half the plaza, but our lights stayed on. The windows were black mirrors. You couldn't see the parking lot at all. At 11:17 p.m., the phone rang. Once, then again. I let it ring. Aaron yelled from the back, "You gonna get that?" I picked up. Pizza Hut were closed. At first, I thought the line was dead. Then a voice came through, thin and calm, like someone speaking from the bottom of a stairwell. "I know." I hung up. My hands were shaking, so I wiped them on my apron and told myself it was nothing. Pranks happened. Still, I locked the delivery door, even though policy said not to until trash was out. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. I didn't answer. The ringing stopped. The store went quiet in that way that makes you notice every hum and click. Then, from the back hallway near the walk-in freezer, I heard a soft knock. 3 taps. Slow. Deliberate. Aaron stuck his head out, soap up to his elbows. "Did you hear that?" Before I could answer, it came again. 3 taps. Same rhythm. Same place. We stood there, listening. The back hallway ended at the emergency exit. No windows, no reason anyone should be there. Aaron wiped his hands and grabbed the mop handle like it was a weapon. Probably a delivery guy messing around. He took 2 steps toward the hallway when the taps turned into dragging. Something scraped along the metal door, slow enough to raise goosebumps. Then the phone rang. It rang and rang until I picked up, my mouth dry. "You locked the wrong door," the voice said. The line went dead. Aaron froze. "What did it say?" I didn't answer. I was staring at the security monitor over the counter. The camera for the back exit was usually useless, all static and glare. But now it showed the door clearly. Someone was standing on the other side. They were so close to the camera that all I could see was the top of a head and one eye, pressed right up to the lens. The eye didn't blink. It just stared, unblinking and wet, like it was studying the room. Aaron swore and dropped the mop. "Call the cops." I tried. No dial tone. The lights flickered just once, long enough to make the shadows jump. From the back hallway, the handle on the emergency door rattled. Hard. Fast. Like someone testing it, learning it. The eye disappeared from the monitor. Then the camera feed went black. We heard footsteps inside the walls. That's the only way I can describe it. Not in the hallway, not in the ceiling. Inside the walls themselves, moving from the back toward the kitchen. The sound of fingernails dragging along metal studs. Aaron ran to the freezer and yanked the door open. In here. Now. The freezer light was dim and buzzing. We slammed the door shut and threw the latch. Inside, the cold burned. My breath fogged instantly. We listened. The footsteps stopped. For a long time, there was nothing but the freezer motor in our breathing. I started to think maybe we were overreacting. Maybe someone had tried the door and left. Then the radio crackled to life outside, muffled through the thick door. The same voice came through the static. "Employees are still inside," it said, slow and careful. "Store is not empty." Aaron covered his mouth. Tears were running down his face, freezing at his chin. The voice hummed like it was thinking. Then, from right outside the freezer door, I heard a fingernail tap the metal. Once, twice, 3 times. The latch rattled, harder than before. The freezer door bowed inward just a little, enough to make the shelves shake. I don't remember screaming, but my throat hurt later, so I must have. The tapping stopped. Footsteps moved away, calm and unhurried. A door opened somewhere. The front door, I think. Then silence. We stayed in that freezer for almost an hour, until the cold made my fingers numb and my teeth wouldn't stop chattering. When we finally came out, the store looked untouched. No broken doors, no signs of forced entry, except the phone. The handset was off the hook, resting on the counter. The cord was stretched tight, pulled toward the back hallway. The police said there was no one on the security footage. The back camera failure was labeled equipment error. They told us someone probably tried to scare us and left when we hid. The next morning, when the opening manager came in, he found something written in grease on the stainless steel prep table. Closed doesn't mean empty. I quit that day. Months later, I heard from a former coworker that the phone still rings after closing sometimes. Just once. Just long enough to make the new hires look up. And if someone answers, the voice always says the same thing. I know.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 5.
The Pizza Hut I worked at sat off a 2-lane highway. The kind of place truckers stopped at after midnight and families avoided once the sun went down. It was an older building, low and wide with dark windows and a flickering red roof sign that buzzed when it rained. I was 19, saving for college, and the night shift paid $1 more, so I took it without thinking twice. From the first week, things felt off. The store had blind spots, corners where the lights never quite reached. The walk-in freezer was in the back, separated by a narrow hall that smelled like old grease and damp cardboard. The manager, Carl, warned me never to go back there alone after midnight. He said it like a joke, but his face didn't match the tone. The Pizza Hut closed at 2 a.m., but the deliveries didn't stop until later. Some nights it was just me and one driver, cleaning and waiting for the ovens to cool. That was when the calls started. The phone would ring after we closed, always once, always long enough to make you answer out of habit. When I picked up, there was nothing at first. Then breathing, slow, careful breathing, like someone trying not to be heard. When I asked if they wanted to place an order, the line would go dead. Carl told me it was probably prank calls. He said the same thing when I found the bathroom mirror smeared with grease fingerprints at shoulder height, like someone had pressed their face against it. He said kids broke in sometimes. Still, he changed the locks. One night, close to 1:30 a.m., a man came in 5 minutes before closing. He wore a dark jacket and kept his hood up, even though it was summer. He didn't look at the menu. He didn't look at me. He just stood at the counter and asked if we still did the old pan pizzas. I said yes and asked for his order. He smiled then, wide and stiff, like he was practicing. He ordered a large pepperoni, extra cheese, and asked if he could watch it being made. I told him customers weren't allowed behind the counter. "That's fine," he said. "I can wait." He sat in the corner booth where the light was out. I made the pizza fast, trying not to look at him, but I could feel his eyes following me. When it came out of the oven, I boxed it and called his number. He didn't respond. I turned around and the booth was empty. I assumed he'd gone to the bathroom. When I checked, the door was open, the light off. The mirror was fogged, even though no one had run water. The pizza sat on the counter growing cold. Carl told me to throw it away and lock up early. That night, I dreamed of the freezer door closing from the inside. The next week, one of the drivers didn't come back from a delivery. His name was Mike, a quiet guy who always whistled while folding boxes. His car was found the next morning behind the store, engine cold, door unlocked. Inside was a stack of untouched pizzas, all paid for in cash, all ordered from the same number. The police questioned us, but nothing came of it. Carl was pale and jittery, snapping at everyone. He started keeping the back door chained, even during business hours. He told me the building used to be something else before Pizza Hut bought it. He wouldn't say what. The calls got worse. Now the breathing turned into whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like counting. Sometimes I thought I heard my name. One night while mopping near the freezer, I heard a knock from inside. 3 slow taps, then silence. I froze, mop dripping, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I opened the door. It was empty. just shelves of frozen dough and boxes of wings. But the temperature was wrong. It was warmer than it should have been, and the air smelled metallic, like blood and pennies. On the floor, scratched into the ice with something sharp, were tally marks, dozens of them. I quit the next day. Carl didn't argue. He just nodded like he'd been expecting it. A month later, the Pizza Hut closed for renovations. A year after that, it was torn down completely. Officially, Mike was never found. Unofficially, a construction worker told the local paper they discovered something under the foundation, a sealed room, chains bolted to the walls, old boxes with faded Pizza Hut logos stacked like offerings. Sometimes late at night when I drive past where the restaurant used to be, my phone rings from a blocked number. I never answer, but I still hear the breathing.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 6.
I worked at a Pizza Hut when I was 19, the kind tucked beside a highway where the parking lot lights buzzed all night and the smell of grease never really left your clothes. I didn't think of it as scary then. It was just a job. That changed during my last month there. On a closing shift, I still can't fully explain. We closed at midnight. After the last order went out, the dining room emptied and the doors were locked. It was just me, the shift manager, and one other cook named Aaron. The building always felt different once the sign lights dimmed. Sounds carried too far. The hum of the walk-in freezer felt louder, like breathing. Sometimes the phones would ring once and stop, even though they were unplugged from the wall after close. That night, a storm rolled in fast. Rain hammered the windows so hard it sounded like gravel. The power flickered twice, enough to reset the ovens. The manager, Lisa, told me to finish dishes while she counted the till in the office. Aaron went to the back to restock dough from the freezer. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I remember realizing the kitchen was too quiet. The ovens were off, the rain muffled everything else, and Aaron hadn't come back. I called his name. No answer. I went to the freezer door and knocked. Nothing. When I pulled the handle, it didn't open. At first I thought it was iced shut. I yanked harder. The handle rattled, but the door didn't budge. That's when I heard something from the other side. Not a knock, scraping. Slow, uneven, like fingernails dragging across metal. I ran to the office and told Lisa the freezer was stuck and Aaron was inside. She grabbed her keys and followed me back, annoyed more than worried. She tried the handle. Same result. She knocked and shouted his name. The scraping stopped. We stood there listening. The freezer motor kicked on, low and steady. No voices. Lisa's face drained of color. She told me to call 911. While I was on the phone, the freezer door suddenly opened an inch on its own, like the seal had released. Cold air spilled out across the floor. Lisa pulled it wide and stepped back. The freezer was empty. No Aaron. No dough trays out of place. No footprints in the frost. Just rows of boxes and the hum of the motor. The temperature read -10. The police came. They searched the store, the dumpsters, the lot, the drainage ditch behind the building. They asked if Aaron had left early, if he joked about quitting, if we were sure he'd gone to the freezer at all. I watched them open the freezer again and again, like he might suddenly be there if they looked the right way. Security footage showed Aaron walking into the freezer. It never showed him coming out. They shut the store down for a week. When it reopened, everyone whispered. Some said the freezer latch had failed and the footage glitched. Others said Aaron had planned it, staged the whole thing. His family didn't believe that. Neither did I. After that, closing shifts got worse. The phones rang more often after midnight. The freezer door would sometimes fog up from the inside, even when no one was there. Once, while mopping, I heard scraping again, faint and rhythmic, coming from behind the metal wall. My last night, I was alone in the kitchen while Lisa locked the office. I heard a voice behind me say my name, muffled, like it was coming through insulation. It sounded cold, familiar. I quit the next morning. They tore that Pizza Hut down a year later and built something new on the lot. I drive past it sometimes. No matter what business is there now, the back wall still has no windows, and when it rains hard enough, I swear I can hear something scratching, trying to get out.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 7.
I worked at a Pizza Hut on the edge of a dying strip mall when I was 19. The kind of place where half the lights in the parking lot never came back on, and the dumpsters were always warm, even in winter. I'm telling this now because the building is gone. It was bulldozed last year. There's nothing left to sue, nothing left to protect, and the people who were there with me won't return my messages anymore. The store had been built in the late 80s, one of those classic red-roof dine-in locations with the stained glass lamps and deep booths that smelled like grease soaked into fabric. By the time I got hired, the dining room was permanently closed. We were delivery and carry-out only. The booths were stacked with broken chairs, the salad bar was a metal corpse, and the old jukebox still hummed faintly when the AC kicked on, even though it wasn't plugged in. On my first night closing, the shift manager warned me not to go into the back storage room alone. He laughed when he said it, like he wanted to see if I'd laugh too. I didn't. He told me the cameras back there never worked and corporate wouldn't replace them. He said sometimes the motion alarm tripped after hours, but it was probably rats. The building was old. Everything was old. The storage room was behind the walk-in freezer, down a narrow hall that always felt colder than the rest of the store. The floor sloped slightly downward, like it had settled wrong. We kept old boxes of cups, outdated promotional signs, and broken equipment back there. Things that never moved, things that shouldn't have needed inventory. About a week in, I noticed the counts were always off, not by a lot. One box of pan lids missing, then back the next night. A sleeve of cups opened, then sealed again with different tape. I asked another driver if he grabbed supplies from the back. He swore he hadn't been in there in months. One night around 11:40 after the last delivery went out, the phones rang. The caller ID read unknown, which wasn't unusual, but when I answered, there was only breathing. Slow, wet, like someone had their mouth too close to the receiver. I asked if they wanted to place an order. The breathing stopped. Then I heard something that sounded like chewing. The line went dead. We all laughed it off. People prank call restaurants all the time. Still, when I wiped down the cut table afterward, I noticed bite marks on the edge of the counter. Human teeth, shallow but unmistakable. The manager blamed a drunk customer from earlier, even though we hadn't let anyone inside. The first time I saw it, I was restocking boxes in the back with another employee named Mark. The storage room light flickered the way it always did, but then it stayed dim, like someone had turned a knob down halfway. Mark froze. He stared past me toward the far wall where the oldest boxes were stacked nearly to the ceiling. Something moved, not fast, not like a rat. The boxes shifted inward, as if a person behind them had leaned forward and then settled back again. I could hear breathing, not loud, controlled, close. Mark dropped the box he was holding and backed into me so hard I stumbled. We both ran. When we told the manager, he went back there alone and came out 5 minutes later, pale and sweating, telling us to clock out early. He locked the back hall door and said he'd deal with it. The next morning, the door was unlocked. From then on, strange things became routine. Pizzas went missing between the oven and the cut table. Not whole pies, just slices, cleanly removed. Boxes were found stacked in the dining room, arranged neatly in booths we never used. The jukebox started playing on its own, always the same song, low and warped, like the tape was being eaten. The worst was the smell. Underneath the usual grease and dough, there was something sweet and rotten, like meat left too long in a warm car. It came and went. The walk-in was checked and rechecked. Nothing was expired. Nothing was leaking. One night I stayed late to help close because someone had called out. It was just me and the assistant manager, Jenna. Around midnight, the power flickered. The oven shut down. The emergency lights came on, bathing everything in a dull red glow. From the back hall, we heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, bare feet on tile. Jenna whispered my name and told me not to move. The footsteps stopped right outside the freezer door. Something pressed against it from the other side, leaving a long, smeared handprint in condensation. The fingers were too long. There were too many joints. A voice came through the metal, muffled and hoarse. It asked if we were still open. Jenna ran for the front. I followed. We didn't look back. We locked ourselves in the office and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the building and found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No one hiding. They suggested a transient might have gotten in earlier and left. Before they left, one of the officers asked why there were bite marks on the freezer door. The store closed a week later for renovations. Corporate said it wasn't profitable anymore. The employees scattered. The building sat empty, windows boarded, red roof fading to brown. People reported lights on at night. Deliveries left on the curb were gone by morning, boxes torn open, crusts missing. I drove past it once, months later. For a second, I thought I saw someone sitting in one of the old booths, hunched over a pizza box, chewing slowly in the dark. The building is gone now, scraped flat. But sometimes, when I pass another Pizza Hut late at night, I swear I smell that same sweet rot. And when the phone rings and there's breathing on the other end, I never answer.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 8.
I worked at a Pizza Hut on the edge of town for a little over 6 months, and I've never talked about what happened there without my hand shaking. I'm not telling this for attention. I'm telling it because every now and then I see people joke about how creepy closing shifts can be. And I need someone to understand that sometimes it's more than just nerves and shadows. The store was old, one of those dine-in locations from the 90s that still had red booths and dim lights, even after most places switched to takeout only. At night, the building felt hollow, like it was too big for the 3 or 4 people left inside. Sound traveled strangely. A dropped pan in the back echoed like a gunshot. The ovens hummed constantly, even when they weren't running, or at least that's what it sounded like. My manager, Rick, had a strict rule about closing. Once the doors were locked, nobody went outside alone. He never explained why. He was the kind of guy who joked about everything, but whenever someone asked about that rule, his smile would fade for just a second before he brushed it off. The first weird thing happened during my second week. I was restocking boxes in the walk-in freezer, counting inventory. The door slammed shut behind me. That wasn't unusual. It was heavy and sometimes closed on its own. But when I turned around, the inside handle was pulled down, like someone was holding it from the outside. I pushed, it didn't budge. I yelled, assuming one of the drivers was messing with me. No response. The freezer was loud, the fans roaring, cold biting through my uniform. I banged on the door until my fists hurt. After what felt like forever, the handle snapped back up and the door opened. Nobody was there. Rick swore it was just a pressure thing with the handle. He laughed it off, but he didn't meet my eyes. That night, as we finished closing, I noticed the freezer door was duct taped open. When I asked about it, Rick said quietly, "Just in case." Things escalated slowly after that. Orders would pop up on the screen after midnight, even though our system shut off automatically at 11. The tickets didn't have names, just the same item repeated. A large pan pizza, no sauce, extra cheese cut into squares. Every time it happened, the printer would screech like it was struggling, and then the ticket would tear itself halfway down the middle. Rick told us to throw those tickets away and never make the pizzas. One night, I stayed late cleaning the dining area. The lights over the booths flickered, casting long shadows across the floor. As I wiped down a table near the back, I noticed something scratched into the wood. It wasn't graffiti, not exactly. It looked deliberate, deep and careful. Freezer door. I asked Rick about it the next day. He stared at the table for a long time before telling me that years ago, before he worked there, an employee had gone missing during a closing shift. The official story was that the guy walked out and never came back. No camera footage showed him leaving. No car in the parking lot. No explanation. They found his phone weeks later, crushed behind the freezer. After that, I started noticing how often the freezer seemed occupied. Not physically, but audibly. If I stood near it long enough, I'd hear knocking from the inside. Slow, deliberate knocks, 3 at a time. When I mentioned it to my coworkers, a few admitted they'd heard it too. One girl quit on the spot after she swore she heard her name whispered through the metal door. The worst night was my last. We were closing short-staffed. Just me, Rick, and one driver who left early for a delivery. The rain was pounding outside, the kind that muffles everything and makes the world feel distant. Around 10:45, the order screen lit up. Large pan pizza, no sauce, extra cheese, square cut. The printer screamed and spat out the ticket, whole this time. Rick stared at it, pale. "We're not making that," he said, but his voice shook. That's when the knocking started. Not just from the freezer, from the walls, from under the floor. Slow, heavy knocks, like something testing the building. The lights flickered and went out, plunging the kitchen into darkness, except for the red glow of the exit signs. Then the freezer door handle began to move. It rattled violently, slamming up and down like someone was desperate to get out. The knocking turned into pounding, fists or something harder slamming against metal from the inside. I could hear muffled screaming through the door, distorted by the thickness of it, but unmistakably human. Rick backed away, whispering, "Don't open it. Don't ever open it." The handle snapped down and stayed there. I don't remember deciding to run. I just remember being outside in the rain, gasping, my uniform soaked through. The driver's car was still gone. Rick never came out. I waited until the police arrived, called by a neighbor who heard the alarm blaring. They searched the store. The freezer was empty. Rick was never found. The police told me stress can make people imagine things, especially in old buildings with faulty wiring. They said Rick probably left through the back door. There was no evidence of foul play. The store reopened 2 weeks later with a new manager. I quit and never went back. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear knocking in my dreams. 3 slow knocks and I wake up freezing, certain that somewhere, in a place that smells like dough and grease and old metal, someone is still trapped, waiting for a door that will never open.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 9.
I worked at a Pizza Hut off a highway exit when I was 19, the kind of place that stayed open late because truckers and night shift workers needed somewhere warm to sit. The dining room lights were always too bright, the red booths permanently sticky no matter how much sanitizer we used, and the smell of grease clung to your clothes long after your shift ended. Most nights were boring, but the night that still wakes me up years later started like any other. It was a Tuesday, almost closing time. Rain hammered the window so hard it sounded like fingers tapping the glass. We had already flipped most of the chairs onto the tables, and the only people left were me, my manager Rick, and one delivery driver counting tips near the register. The kitchen felt hollow without the usual noise. The ovens hummed, the soda machine gurgled, and somewhere in the back, a loose rattled every time the wind picked up. That's when the phone rang. Rick answered it on speaker, already annoyed. A man's voice came through, low and calm, asking for a large pepperoni and a medium veggie. Nothing strange about that, except he kept correcting himself. He'd pause, breathe, then change a topping. Rick joked about it, but the man didn't laugh. When Rick asked for the address, there was another long pause. I remember looking at the delivery driver and feeling a tightness in my chest for no reason I could explain. The man finally gave an address less than 10 minutes away, a small residential street we deliver to all the time. He paid over the phone. Before hanging up, he said something that made all of us stop moving. "You close at 11, right?" Rick said yes. "Good," the man replied. "You won't want anyone else in there." The line went dead. Rick brushed it off, said some people were just weird. The delivery driver left with the order, and the door shut behind him with a dull thud that echoed through the empty dining room. That was when I noticed the back door to the kitchen wasn't fully closed. It was cracked open just enough for cold air to creep in. I assumed Rick had taken trash out earlier and forgot to latch it. I went to shut it, but as I reached for the handle, I heard movement from the alley outside. Slow footsteps, not passing by, but lingering. I froze, listening. The footsteps stopped right on the other side of the door. I didn't open it. I backed away and told Rick. He sighed, irritated, and said he'd check. He swung the door open and stepped into the rain, cursing under his breath. I stood there watching the doorway, feeling exposed, like the building had suddenly lost its walls. Rick came back in a moment later, shaking water off his jacket, saying no one was there. We locked the door anyway. A few minutes later, the lights flickered. Not fully off, just a quick dim, like the building had blinked. Rick muttered about the storm messing with the power. I went back to wiping down counters, but something felt off. The dining room felt too quiet, like even the ovens were holding their breath. Then the phone rang again. Rick answered, and his face changed immediately. The same man was on the line. "I forgot something," he said. Rick asked what. The man said, "You forgot to check the freezer." Rick laughed, sharp and forced, and told him not to call again. He slammed the phone down harder than necessary. I asked him what that was about, but he didn't answer right away. He just stared toward the back of the kitchen, the freezer. Pizza Hut's walk-in freezer was in the back, past the prep tables. We kept it locked from the outside because of theft, but anyone inside could open it. Rick told me he was going to check it just to prove the guy was messing with us. I followed him, my stomach twisting tighter with every step. When he opened the freezer, cold air poured out, fogging the floor. Inside, everything looked normal at first. Boxes of dough, frozen wings, bags of cheese. Then Rick noticed the footprints, wet footprints. They led from the back corner of the freezer straight toward the door. Rick didn't say anything. He just slowly closed the freezer and locked it. His hands were shaking. He told me to go up front and lock the main doors, even though we weren't technically closed yet. While I was at the register, the delivery driver called. He sounded out of breath, panicked. He said the address we sent him to was empty. No lights, no cars, no house number on the mailbox. As he was turning around, someone knocked on his car window from the darkness. When he looked, it was a man smiling, holding a Pizza Hut receipt. The man said, "They didn't forget to check the freezer, did they?" The driver sped off and didn't stop until he was back at the store, skidding into the parking lot. As soon as he ran inside, Rick locked the doors and called the police. They arrived fast. They searched the alley, the roof, the dumpster area. They found nothing. When they checked the freezer, it was empty, just boxes and frost. No footprints anymore. The officers told us it was probably a prank, maybe someone who used to work there and knew the layout. But as they were leaving, one of them pulled Rick aside. He told him they found something behind the building, hidden under a pallet near the dumpster. A Pizza Hut uniform shirt. It was soaked, muddy, and old. The name tag was still pinned to it. The name belonged to a guy who had worked there years earlier and vanished without ever picking up his last paycheck. The store closed early that night. I quit the next morning. Years later, I still can't walk past a Pizza Hut at night without feeling that same tightness in my chest. Sometimes I think about that phone call, about the freezer, about how someone knew exactly where to hide inside a place filled with noise and light. And I wonder how many other late-night workers heard footsteps in the rain and assumed it was nothing, never thinking to check the freezer before locking up.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 10.
I worked the closing shift at a Pizza Hut just off the highway, the kind of place that stayed open later than it should because truckers and night shift workers kept it barely alive. This happened in 2016, and to this day, I still can't drive past that building without my stomach tightening. Most nights were the same. Grease-stained tiles, the low hum of the soda machine, the smell of burnt cheese soaked into the walls. After 10 p.m., dine-in slowed to almost nothing. It was usually just me, the shift manager named Aaron, and one driver. That night, it was raining hard enough to blur the windows, the parking lot lights flickering like they were about to give up. Around 10:40, a man came in alone. He didn't look threatening at first. Mid-30s, soaked jacket, baseball cap pulled low. What stood out was how long he stood at the door before coming in, just staring through the glass like he was counting something inside. When he finally entered, he didn't shake off the rain. He just walked straight to the counter, water pooling around his shoes. He ordered a large pepperoni, pan crust, extra cheese. Normal enough. He paid in cash, exact change already folded and damp. While Aaron rang him up, the man leaned over the counter slightly and asked, "You close at midnight, right?" Aaron nodded. "Yeah." The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Good. Plenty of time. He sat in the farthest booth, back to the wall, facing the kitchen and the door at the same time. I remember thinking it was weird because the dining room was empty. People usually sat closer to the TV or the windows. He didn't touch his phone, didn't read anything. He just watched us. While the pizza cooked, I kept catching him staring at me, not checking me out, watching me, like he was memorizing how I moved. When the oven beeped, I jumped harder than I should have. Aaron boxed the pizza and called his number. The man walked up slowly, picked up the box, then stopped. "Mind if I eat it here?" he asked. Aaron shrugged. Sure. The man took one slice out, didn't sit down, didn't even take a bite. He leaned over the trash can and dumped the slice straight into it. Then another slice, and another. I remember the sound, cheese slapping against plastic, pepperoni sliding down the bag. Aaron finally said, "Hey man, you okay?" The man looked at him and said, very calmly, "I don't eat it. I just like how it smells." Then he closed the box, threw the rest of the pizza away, and walked out into the rain. We all just stood there. Aaron laughed it off, said people were weird, and went back to paperwork. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. 20 minutes later, the phone rang. I picked it up. No one spoke. All I could hear was breathing and a faint, wet sound, like rain hitting concrete. "Hello?" I said. The breathing stopped. Then a voice, low and close to the receiver, said, "You shouldn't leave the back door unlocked." My heart dropped. I looked straight at the back door leading to the alley. It was slightly ajar, like it always was during deliveries. The line went dead. Aaron checked the alley. Nothing there. No one. He locked the door anyway and told us to relax. We joked nervously, but the air felt wrong after that. Heavy, like the store was holding its breath. At 11:15, our driver left on his last delivery. That meant it was just me and Aaron until close. At 11:32, the bathroom light turned on by itself. Aaron swore under his breath. "You mess with the switch?" I shook my head. We walked together toward the restroom. The door was closed. The light was on. Aaron knocked. No answer. He pushed the door open. It was empty. The sink was running. And written on the fogged mirror, traced with a finger, were the words, "Smells better when you're scared." Aaron went pale. He shut off the water and locked the bathroom door. He didn't say anything, but I saw his hands shaking. We decided to close early. As we started shutting down the kitchen, we heard a loud thud from the ceiling. Something heavy directly above the prep station. Then another thud. Slow footsteps. Aaron whispered, "We don't have an attic." Another thud. Louder. Closer. Then we heard laughter, muffled, coming from the vents. We ran for the front door. It was locked from the outside. The lights flickered, and the smell hit us all at once. Hot grease, pepperoni, cheese, stronger than it had ever been, like the ovens were burning at full blast, even though they were off. From the kitchen, a voice said, "Told you, plenty of time." Something scraped along the floor behind us. Aaron pulled out his phone and called 911. The operator answered, but before he could speak, the line filled with breathing again, then chewing, wet and slow. The lights went out. In the darkness, I felt someone brush past me, close enough that I smelled rain-soaked fabric and old grease. Then the front door unlocked. We ran. Police arrived minutes later. They searched the building, the roof, the alley. No one was found, no signs of forced entry. The bathroom mirror was clean. The back door was locked. The ceiling showed no damage. The only thing they found was the trash bag. Inside it were the pizza slices from earlier. All of them had bites taken out of the crust. Not the toppings, just the crust. The store shut down 2 weeks later after another employee quit screaming during a closing shift. They never reopened that location. And sometimes when I pass a Pizza Hut late at night and smell fresh pizza through the vents, I still think about that man. About how he never ate the pizza, and how he knew exactly how long we'd be alone.